Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice podcast, your inside connection to outdoor legislation. From the Beltway to policy happening your way, we're covering it all. I'm your host, Fred Bird. Join us as we explore public land access, wildlife and fisheries management, Second Amendment rights, the triumphs that shape our nation, the sports we all love, and the stories that fuel our passion for the great outdoors. This is the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Welcome in, everybody, to this feature episode of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. This week, we welcome in Mr. Will Primos, legendary Will Primos, call maker, conservationist, businessman. I could put a whole lot of titles on him, but this episode, we're going to highlight Will as the philanthropist, as a passionate conservationist, and you wouldn't like me to say it, but legend. We kicked off this past week at the National Wild Turkey Federation Convention and Sports Show the Truth About Conservation campaign, in which we will showcase a very special collection of Purdy shotguns owned and commissioned by Will Primos himself. This one of a kind, rare, only to be made once in a lifetime. And none of these, two of these guns don't even exist anywhere else, are going to be put up for auction later this year. And the proceeds of the collection will be split among of five, four of Will's favorite conservation critter groups and CSF. And really, you're going to hear Will's passion for CSF and his goal of people knowing who we are, who our caucus groups are, what we do. And really, he wants, the sporting community and the conservation community to know the work that we're doing on the Hill, the work we're doing in the state houses in your backyards. I just can't thank him enough. So I don't want to go too long on the intro here and building this up. It's a great episode. To have the access and the time with Will is very special. I've talked with him over the years, especially my work at NWTF in the past. As a casual fan for a number of years, I guarantee you've seen the Primos name, you just haven't recognized it. Probably after this episode, it'll stand out to you. Calls are everywhere in every major brick and mortar that sells sporting goods, all the way down to the very small mom and pop in your neighborhood that sells night crawlers and bait fish. And if there's a turkey or a coyote call in that establishment, it's likely got a Primo stamp on it. You're gonna learn all about that. Will's gonna talk about a little bit about his resume, if you will, his biography, his motivations, his goals for this campaign, for the sporting community, for the conservation community to speak the language that is the truth about conservation. We're gonna do all that right now. Let's tee up, Will. Let's go. All right, so we are here at the National Wild Turkey Federation Convention and Sports Show, as I teased out on last week's program, and it is a pleasure, and without being hyperbolic, because it's not, and it is an honor. One of our, I don't know, I would definitely say a Mount Rushmore-esque individual in the hunting conservation community, and definitely in the turkey world, Mr. Will Primos. Will, thanks for your time this morning. Thanks for coming in.
Fred, I don't know those accolades. I have to run from that because, oh my gosh, I'm not Mount Rushmore material.
And then that's exactly why, right there, the humility. No, it's listen, the fact that we got some time together and competing with the thousands of people that are in this building here at the Gaylord Opryland and heading out to that show floor in a matter of minutes, we're thankful for it, and we're thankful for what we're here to talk about, which is the truth about conservation. Will has curated a collection of firearms that we're going to talk about and get into the specifics of, and the bulk of it is he's donated these generously, so that money raised can go back into conservation. nonprofits that he's going to talk about. Um, Before we get that, I want to introduce him and his story to you, our audience. And it's fair to acknowledge that you folks sitting in state house buildings and you're sitting there writing legislation and we're working and having conversations may not know a Will Primo. So here's the opportunity to get to know the man himself and what's bringing him to this point today in the truth about conservation. So Will, let's start at the beginning with that
Well,
first
well,
duck call.
well, well, first off, thank you very much about talking about the show and the pace of it and needing to get down there and be there. But I cannot think of anything more dear to me or more important to me than to be here and to be talking to the audience that is the Congressional Sportsmen Foundation. This organization is the number one in my book, and that is why I chose them to gift these firearms to, uh, and then under contract, divvy the money up between
Mm.
the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation and four of the conservation organizations that have been so dear to me in my life. But thank you for letting me be here. Yeah,
Yeah, it's remarkable. It's gonna be exciting to see how this plays out and
it is. It sure is.
the organizations that will receive it. I mean, we know that it's gonna get good put to good use. All fine organizations that do an amazing amount of work. And for our part, I said it last night at our reception. Uh, when we work with an NWTF, a Ducks Unlimited, a Rocky Mountain Elk, Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, in collaboration on support testimony or opposition testimony, and we get to add those logos to our letterhead and what that represents, the sign-ons, and we submit that. We put those in front of legislators or put them in committee and say, "This is why this bill is bad. This is why this bill is good, and we need to get it over the finish line." It represents more than just turkey hunters. It's in this particular case, it's a 250,000 plus turkey hunters. Those are real numbers, and combined, we're up over 1,300,000.
Yeah, yeah. So, when I made when Corinne Johan, who is head of marketing at the Congressional Sportsman Foundation, who I have a relationship with, I knew from way back when she was at Matthews. I shoot for Matthews, and she came and hunted with me along with the other marketing team from Matthews at my wife and I's place called Rivers Run in the Mississippi Delta. And so I got to know her a little bit. And then when she landed at the Congressional Sportsman Foundation, and we had this conversation about what we were gonna what my thought was of what to do about these guns. It's Corinne and her vision and the okay from, uh, from Kevin Perry and from Jeff Crane and the higher ups to roll with this campaign,
Mm.
to name it the truth about conservation, and it has exceeded my expectations, the commitment that they have made, the commitment from all the conservation organizations, from not only the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation and the organization, creating the website, all the things that they've done, but the commitment from the National Wild Turkey Federation, from Ducks Unlimited, from Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, from Pheasants and Quail Forever, who are going to be the benefits of the money that these guns are going to generate. Um, all of that combined and their commitment and what they have done to create the media and the story and to tell the story has really brought me to tears.
Yeah.
I wanted my vision is I'm standing on a beautiful alpine lake in the Rocky Mountains, and it's absolutely a mirror, solid, not a ripple on it. And I take a small stone and throw it 10 yards out, and it hits the water, and these ripples go, and it takes a little while, but it ends up
Mm.
covering many, almost 100 yards, rippling across that small little lake, that little beautiful alpine lake. And I want to create this ripple effect. And there's already been some ripples from it. That this idea has taken real legs, that you can take something of value and gift it and turn it into a whole lot more.
And I was thinking about this conversation we're having in preparation and the profoundness of it, and then everything you just said is absolutely accurate. And me knowing who you are and your background and what you've already done for the sporting community at large, the conservation community, your passion, your dedication. can't help to think about, biology, right? And what I mean by that is death is bad in a thousand. It comes for us all. We will all leave this earthly plane at some point, and we are never more than like 2 generations away from being forgotten, I don't know my great-grandfather and anything before that. I know them on a name, I see them on a piece of paper, but I don't know the man, I don't know the personality, I don't know any stories.
Yes, sir.
And for us that have a higher level of believing and calling, we know that there's something else, but here, what does that mean? And most of us won't have the ability to be remembered after a couple of generations, right? After our parents and our grandkids and we go. In an instance like this, and this isn't why you're doing it, but I find this is what's sad with me is like Will Primos will have an opportunity to outlive a couple of generations once he goes
Well,
home.
that's quite an honor. That's not the goal, and that's
No, it's not,
not at
but
all. But and if that happens, so be it.
it's
'Cause
amazing.
it's not important. What's important to me is that more people learn about who the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation is and how incredibly invaluable they are to what we are as citizens of the United States. That whether we hunt or we fish or we don't, you cannot ever expect somebody to want to protect something that they don't love. If you have a child and you love that child, you're going to protect that child. You're going to teach it how to cross the street. You're going to help, you're going to nurture it. You're going to invest in their lives, not just monetarily, but you're going to invest your time in everything that that child does to give that child a chance at a successful life and to stay away from the things that are bad in life. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a opportunity to invest for people, young people especially, some knowledge so that they'll understand what the marshes of Louisiana are that got lost through the way we've handled the river and what we've done. The Great Salt Lake Basin, the Everglades, the Great Forest of the United States, the plains, the grasslands, the short grass prairie, the tall grass prairie, all this stuff, the prairie pothole region. If they don't understand it, they don't know it exists, and they don't know how important it is because everything trickles downstream, they're not going to ever have the chance to love it, whether they hunt or fish or not. If you can love what God created, what He gave us, what exists, what's out there, and if we can understand the decisions we've made that have screwed it up and restore it or protect what hasn't already been destroyed, that's the truth about conservation. That's what I want to do. But going back to where you were headed, and I kind of got you sidetracked a little bit, who is Will Primo? I'm 72 years old. I was born in 1952. I'll be 73 in 2 weeks. Um, I was born into a very loving, extended family with mother and fathers, very strong Christians, raised in a Christian family. I got my butt whipped when I was bad. And if I was disrespectful to my father or my mother, I paid for it. But especially if I was disrespectful to my mother. One day I told my daddy just passed away. He was a World War II vet, died 98 years old 2 years ago. Incredible thing to be with him and to watch him the last years of his life go through that process of leaving this earth, as you made mention to, that we're all going to do one day. And I told Daddy, I said, Daddy, you know what the greatest gift you ever gave me? And I thought he was going to say, my, my 16 gauge clock's double that I bought for $10 when I got out of World War II. I said, no, Daddy, that ain't it. The greatest gift you ever gave me was your respect, love, devotion to our mother, to my mother. It taught me more about life, more about the respect of others, more about how to handle yourself in life than anything else. And then tears were coming to his eyes, realizing that just by his actions, and that's what we've got to do. Words are one thing, actions are another thing. We've got to step up to the plate. Well, my daddy got out of World War II. His daddy came over from Greece when he was 8 years old with his mother and 4 other siblings, landed in New Orleans and didn't have an education in the United States, much less much of one from Greece. The Turks had killed his daddy and taken their land, so they had nothing. And they came to the United States for a new life, the immigrant story. And so Daddy learned the restaurant business, which my granddaddy taught him because that's what he learned out of New Orleans. Ended up in Jackson, Mississippi, ended up with 5 restaurants of all different types. One of them had over 400 employees. It was quite an operation, and I was born and raised into that. Extremely strong work ethic. After church on Sunday, I was standing on wooden 7-Up and Coke case. They weren't disposable back then. They were wooden, and they recycled them. Delivered the 7-Ups and the Cokes in bottles. And I would stand on those cases because I wasn't tall enough. And I would make the teas for the waitresses because the church crowd would come and hit the restaurant, and I would make the teas and help them expedite getting that stuff back out the door. And yeah, I went to college. I lived on 52 acres with an extended family. My granddaddy lived a half mile down the road. My uncle Gus, who was so much a part of my life, hunting, taught me all about quail hunting and duck hunting. My uncle Billy took me deer hunting, and then my uncle Ellick took me duck hunting and deer hunting, and my daddy took me small game hunting. Daddy worked all the time. He was a depression child. I'll tell you a story. So Primos created the Truth series of videos and TV shows, and he was on the Outdoor Channel, #1 rated show on the Outdoor Channel for many, many, many years. And Daddy called me one day. He said, "Well, I want to get your TV show. How do I do that?" And I said, "Well, call the cable company and tell them you want to add that to your package. It's the Outdoor Channel." Next day, I said, "Dad, did you get the Outdoor Channel?" "Will, I called them. They want $2 a month for that." So, I paid his $2 a month. He was that frugal. He was a depression child. He didn't have a dime. He didn't have anything, but he saved. He made sure I went to college. He made sure that he provided for his children. I had an older brother and a younger brother, but all I wanted to do was hunt and fish. And I chased every rabbit and every squirrel, and I gigged every frog, and I caught every brim in the little lake. We had a lake right there. I had a little red flower, red wagon, and I would, the sides on those things aren't but about 3 inches tall.
Yeah, right.
I would, when I got it filled up flat, full of bluegills,
That's your limit.
that's my limit. I'd go down the gravel road, headed back to the house, pull in my little deal, and I'd get home and we'd skin them, just scale them, gut them, and fry them whole. That's the best way to eat a brim.
Yeah.
But anyway, I grew up that way, and so I started making calls because one of my friends, he was one of my Uncle Gus's friends, Buck Dearman. He said, "Will, these mouth calls just fall apart. I want you to make a mouth." I said, "I don't know how to make a mouth call." He says, "Will, I've watched you at everything you've done. You can figure it out." I went, "Okay." So I started figuring it out, and I made this double call that had 2 reeds in it that were separated by about 1/8 of an inch. And he was using a triple, but I just thought maybe a double might be not quite so big in your mouth. It might work. And so he loved it, and it lasted. I made them from 10 beer cans. I cut them out with shears, and I used all kind of different adhesives, like carpet type adhesives that you could hold the reed in place. Didn't know what I was doing. Somebody else has already created a better way, by the way. The guys in Pennsylvania were making mouth calls. They knew a whole lot more than I did. And that was in the 70s. So 76, I had the dealer in Pennsylvania and one in Mississippi, and I started Primos Yelpers, which is turkey calls, and that later developed into Primos Hunting. And we had over 900 products. I sold the company in 2006. Stayed on as president for 8 years, doubled it, and we sold it again. It ended up being part of the Vista publicly traded group that owned the federal CCI Spear. That's now been split and gone back to private. Fiocchi bought the ammunition division, which is federal CCI Spear, Remington Ammunition, and then all the hard good companies, about 60 brands. It's called Revelist. That went from public back to a big senior private equity group, bought them. And so we're still part of that. And so Primos is here at the show. We got a booth, seeing all our fans and people that have watched us off over the years. But what really made the mark for Primos was the luck that I had that somebody created the video camera. And that first thing I did was use an audio cassette. In 1983, I produced the first instructional tape with a live hunt on it. And that was so successful that when video came out, we started videoing this hunts, and that started in 1986. And in 87, we produced our first reel linked with hunt video with 12 hunts on it, and I hired a boy named Ronnie Cuz Strickland, who's a big old man. He's a great guy. He works for Mossy Oak now, and he was the first cameraman behind the Truth series. And at the end of that season, we had 12 hunts, and I was in the restaurant business. I'm still got a job. I got a day job.
Mm.
I got to try to fuel this game call company that I'm building. So I was working can to Kate, and I said, "Cuz, I'm gonna buy you a truck. You get in that truck." He named it the Silver Bullet, and I said, "You go anywhere you want to go." I said, "You go anybody that'll let you hunt their land, you take their children, you take them, you just video it, but don't fake anything. Everything's got to be on real." And he was wearing a backpack with the recording device in it, and the camera was attached to a cord on his shoulders, a real big thing, weighed 85 pounds or so, the whole gear. So it was a lot of hard work to get into position. You couldn't run and gun too easy
Yeah.
because you had to make all that happen to try to chase a turkey. But he got 12 incredible hunts. I think I was on 2 of them. I got to go twice. I got to be on. I got to go a few more times than that, but I was actually successful twice. But anyway, we got to the end of the season, and we're sitting down. We got to edit this thing. So the same guy that recorded on the audio cassette recorded my hunts. He had an edit studio, and he produced films, as a matter of fact, documentary films. So we hired him to edit it, and we're thinking, what are we going to call it? Cuz goes, "All I know is I didn't fake nothing. It's the truth." And I went, "Well, let's call it the truth." So we called it the truth. So to yesterday, a guy came to the booth with the original first edition, first printing VHS truth tape. Now, how do I know that? Because when we had to reprint them because we sold so many, we named it the Truth One because we were already working on the Truth Two, and it had to separate it somehow because somebody call you and say, I want to buy the truth. Which one we want?
Yeah.
You know, we had to say, we had to be able to look at the box and know which one we're looking at. So the second printing has Truth One on it, and this one was the original Truth.
Huh.
And he was going around for all those guys that are still living that are on the front cover of that video and getting their signatures,
How about it?
which is pretty cool.
I do love that about this show. There's so much heritage and history, and this crowd just completely geeks out for that history. I do too. Gosh, his name's escaping me.
You said Ben Rogers Lee, or you?
No, I was going to, but it wasn't. It's the fellow that was over at your booth yesterday with the book collection. I should know this off the top of my
Brent
head.
Rogers.
Brent Rogers. Brent Rogers in your booth, and I just, there's the turkey librarian, if you will. Every turkey print, whatever. I think he boasts the largest collection.
Yeah. He's
It's
taken on himself to create a Primos museum in Iowa. And he's done it with also Night and Hail and also Kramer Board. He wrote a book documenting the history of those 3 companies. It's pretty incredible.
awesome.
Yeah, it's just it's a he's showed me stuff I forgot.
It's amazing those VHSs are still out there,
Yeah,
and some of them, and I think most of them, I think people play them.
this guy found this one tearing down a house.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, that's
Just by
pretty.
accident stumbled on it.
Yeah,
So the product's called The Truth, the video series, and then the call company evolves. And I remember watching this stuff, and this was sitting on the porch. This was your tagline, whatever it was. You're teaching turkey, teaching elk, teaching coyote calling, Randy there.
yeah,
And it was that's
man.
you're speaking the language. And those were the two monikers, taglines, whatever you want to identify it as, but that's identifiable with you. The truth and
Yeah.
speak the
So
language.
speak the language. There was a girl in marketing, and my tagline was "For the Woods" because I never made calls for the contest stage.
Mhm.
Waterfowl, whatever they were, I made them as accurately as I could to be the way we hunted and how we needed to be successful in the woods. So I thought, well, we'll call it "For the Woods." So that was the logo. So if you've got a heartbreaker box call, which are some of them are selling over $200 on eBay now, but if you've got one of the original heartbreakers, it'll say "For the Woods" because that was
Really?
the logo from that time. And then this girl, Martin, came to me one day. She, "I got an idea to change our slogan." And I went, "Okay, what you got?" And she says, "I think it ought to be 'Speak the Language.'" And I went, "I don't know if I like that. I'll think about it." I thought about it for a day. I said, "You're an idiot. 'Speak the Language' is perfect." You know. So her name was Jennifer Bricknack, and she came up with that, and I God bless her. It's a great slogan. It says exactly what you are and what you
Mm,
do in the game call business, but it also speaks to the truth about conservation.
exactly right.
Speak the language of conservation. Put your money where your mouth is. Tell the story and protect what we've got.
And what I love about this evolution of that, the speak the language part and the truth about conservation, is your focus on the North American model of wildlife conservation and the American system of conservation funding and how that works. For years, for me personally, before I even got into the policy space, it troubled me and bothered me that we did not tell that story enough. That a new turkey hunter would come in, you'd see him on the floor getting all the stuff, and was gonna have a hell of a spring coming up, but had no idea about Pittman Robinson, about Dingle Johnson, about manufacturer level excise taxes that are already assessed that go in, and then almost 100 years ago, a whole lot of stakeholders, not just turkey hunters, not just fishermen, beekeepers, environmentalists et al. Got together, recognized there was a problem, said, "How do we fix it?" And they raised their hands and put it on our back. "We can do this. We wanna do this." It's the only one of the only taxes I sit in here and support because we want to, and it's a voluntary thing, and this is
Well,
how we
these
can do it.
people who wanna criticize us as hunters and people who kill animals and enjoy consuming the animals for protein, and it's there's so much to it. And I say kill, I don't say harvest. I mean, because you grow a plant in my mind,
Mhm.
and I kill a turkey, I kill a whitetail, I kill a elk, I kill a duck, I kill a grouse, and then I get to process my own food,
Mm.
see what it's all about, and understand all that. Well, you know that 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 particular um, person who doesn't understand that and wants to criticize us has no idea that we're the ones funding it. We're the ones giving them the opportunity to see songbirds.
Mhm.
I got a, I got a, I got a picture that one of my closest friends, if not my closest friend, Brad Ferris, sent me this morning. He's got 3 spin feeders on his property, and he spins sunflowers and wheat 2 times. I'm sorry, 2 seconds a day to just give the turkey something to come by and pick up.
Mhm.
Got a picture from his camera yesterday. There's I don't know, I can't count them all because the female cardinals are harder to see
Mm.
than the males, but there's over 50.
Wow.
He's feeding the songbirds.
Yeah.
Now, there's a couple of turkeys in the background in there that are picking up some scraps, but, I mean, that's what we're about. And we're about protecting, wildlife. We're about making them healthy, giving them the habitat. That's one reason I love the NWTF so much. They're all about habitat and the hunt, you know.
I mean, when I was a staffer here, when I worked for NWTF, it was an easy story to tell for that reason because you were going out there, you joke and kind of the cliche is, I'm not just coming out here putting a signpost in the ground saying for the turkeys only because they, obviously can't read and all that, right? But that's the great part is that the work this organization does, the upland habitat work that it does transcends the species and it benefits all the game species, and waterfowl included, depending on where you're doing the work and the mission delivery, but also the non-game species, which to your point, everyone thinks, oh, we just take, 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 take. No, 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 no. We are funding at the agency level these non-game species programs, bringing back Carner blue butterflies in New Hampshire, martin studies in the Northeast and the Northwest, fisher relocation throughout Pennsylvania and New York. That's $100 doing that.
That's exactly right. Going back to the truth about conservation, that phone call with Corinne when I challenged her, I said, she called me to say, Will, we got some things going on. We got this campaign. I hunt, I fish, I vote, and we want you to be a part of that. And I said, Corinne, I'll help you and try to do that. But that's not going to move the needle a tremendous amount in my part. You got to get somebody to do it. You can get somebody else to do it. It's not. I said, but look, I've been trying my best to figure this out. And for the past 2 years, every time I go to one of these conservation conventions and I meet somebody who has some position of can maybe give me some feedback. So last year I spoke to Al Clark.
Mhm.
Um, and he was here. He's one of the executives in NWTF. He's now gone on to the Teddy Roosevelt group. He's a great guy. And I told him, I said, look, I've got this set of guns, and I'm trying to figure out. I want to have it benefit conservation. I want to give the guns to conservation. And I kind of figure out how to do that. And I kind of told him, I said, if you got any ideas, he goes, I'll think about it. Yeah. And so he called me and we talked a little bit. But when Corinne called, I said, wait a minute. Just right there on the phone that day, I said, Corinne, I've got this set of Purdy shotguns. It's the only consecutive set serial numbers of 410, 28, 20, 16, and 12 hammer guns with ejectors that have ever been built. I've got the only collection. There's only 10 of the 410s in the world, and there's only 128.
Mm.
And it's part of this collection. I said, I want to give those to conservation. And through the process of talking it through, I gifted the guns to the Congressional Sportsmen Foundation under contract. The Congressional Sportsmen Foundation is one of the recipients of the money. When the auction happens, anything over appraised value can be written off because all these groups, the Congressional Sportsmen Foundation, National Wild Turkey Federation, Ducks Unlimited, RMEF, and Quail and Feathers are all 501c3 public groups. So anything over the appraised value, I've got over $1 million in the guns. The guns are appraised for $800,000 because I've hunted with all of them.
Mm.
I've killed whitetail, I've killed turkeys, I've killed grouse, I've killed woodcock, I've killed Mearns quail, gambles, doves, scale quail. I mean, I've hunted everything with them, and I got great pictures, and I love it. But I'm gonna tell you, Bob St. Pierre from Feathers and Quail was watching me after when all the groups came to Mississippi and shot the guns. They actually shot them on a Elise field. Elise field is a discipline of it's a sporting clay type of event. And these birds are flying away from you like a pigeon would fly.
Mm.
And everybody lined up there and shot them. And he's watching me clean them and put them up. And I didn't think anybody was looking at it. And he's watching tears come out of my eyes.
Mm.
I love those guns. When I walked by, they're here at the NWTF. The Rock Island is the auction company. Rock Island auctions the finest guns in the world. And they are here at the show with a booth with the guns in glass.
Mm.
So everybody can see them, and they're promoting this auction that will happen in December, between December 5 and 7 in Texas at Rock Island Auctions. Rock Island forgave the seller's commission.
How about it?
To contribute more back
Mhm.
to conservation. There'll still be a buyer's commission, but that was incredible. And Kevin Hogan, the owner, is bought into this. Matt Peak, who is the head of all the production and video and everything he does for Rock Island to get ready for these auctions and stuff, he's come to my house twice with the group, videoed everything. He has done an incredible job of catching the spirit and the story. Not necessarily of Will Primos, although he did that, but the spirit of this ripple effect that we can try to create, that what we can do. So I am excited that everybody has put so much energy and time in it. And God bless Corinne Johan. She has put so much into this and thought she has worked 7 days a week. She'll call me at the weirdest time. She knows I go to bed early, but she'll call me at 5 o'clock in the morning because she knows I've been up. So everything just went live yesterday. It's a website called The Truth About Conservation. So anybody can go to thetruthaboutconservation.com and see it and understand it and begin to get a feeling for the ripple effect. Because all these dollars that go, let's just say it's not but $1 million, but I'm hoping it's a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But all this is going to get doubled and tripled through grants and
Okay.
other things because it's going to the organizations. And I had the hardest time settling on only 5 groups. The McGraw Foundation is a wetlands waterfowl foundation out of north of Chicago. Incredible. They were behind and produced, along with Ducks Unlimited and along with Audubon, Wings Over Water 3D movie to tell everybody the story of the migration of a mallard, of a yellow warbler, and a sandhill crane, and what they go through and what they need to survive and to live and to make their migrations and to make their lives work. And it's all about the prairie pothole region. Oh my gosh. If you don't know that story and you don't understand it, you need to, because it's part of the lifeblood of the United States. It's part of our clean water. It's part of what gives us life. And McGraw's going to do movies, and Cox, the Cox Communications, the cable company, the family, Jim Kennedy's family, they're supporting the future development of movies on the Great Salt Lake Basin, on the Everglades, of the great forest of the United States. And they're hoping that we can get 30-second, minute and a half snippets of this to every school child in the United States. If you don't teach them, they aren't aware of it, and they can't see it and feel it, they're never going to have a chance to love it.
Yeah.
And if they don't love it, they're not going to want to protect it.
Yeah, there's no value, there's no incentive there.
That's right.
I love where this conversation is going here, and I hate to deviate from it, but I do wanna come back to the guns because it evokes such an emotional response from you.
Yeah.
Try to tell the audience, eh, not everyone is a gun enthusiast, so what is it about these Purdy's? Why are they so special to you personally? And then again, from a collector standpoint, kind of tell that story about the brand and what it took. Because what you said last night, people will learn about these firearms is that the two of the gauges didn't even exist until you made them exist.
Yeah. Yeah. So Purdy is the oldest gun maker in the world. These are handmade guns. It takes about 2.5 years to build one of these guns. I've been to the factory. I was there this May. I went to the Purdy factory. I went and visited. I went and shot at the West London Shooting School. I shot with the 28-time world champion sporting clay winner, George Dewey. And when I was going there, one of the Purdy guys who's retired, he got the craftsmen who've all retired who built my guns to come and surprise me at the school. So I got a picture of these people that held every part of the gun.
True
all
craftsmen.
built by hand. We're not talking about CNC equipment.
Right.
We're talking about, craftsmen. While I was there, I met a lady. Her name is Sally. And Sally, I'll tell you about her. Her name is Sally Strange. And she was my wife and our's guide while we were there all over London and Scotland and Ireland. And turned out she's a Manton, Manton. If you've got a Manton flintlock pistol, Mr. Manton was the guy that trained the first Purdy family member. And she was our guide.
Wow.
Unbelievable connection.
Huh.
And so the Purdys, James Purdy and Sons, the work is, the marriage of metal to wood is crazy. It's the most beautiful art in the world. If you go to the booth here at the NWTF and go and look at those guns in under glass and you look at them, you go, oh my gosh. When you open one of these side by side, you open and you close it, it goes ding. It's that perfect. I fell with the 20 gauge in Arizona, and I protected the gun. I said, okay, but the gun was open.
Yeah.
And because I walk with the guns open, don't close them until the dogs go on point. And a grain of sand got in the action. I didn't know it. And so I got up and I'm making sure the gun's okay. And I tried to close the gun. It wouldn't close. I went, oh my gosh, I have screwed this up royally. And I'm looking at the gun. and all of a sudden I see that piece of sand. I blew it out. Ding, closed. One piece of sand.
Gee whiz.
That's how perfectly made these guns are. And so it's got hammers on it. Why hammers? Well, hammers, before they invented how to put that cocking mechanism inside the gun, the cocking mechanism was the hammers on the outside. So the guns have safeties. So I load the gun and cock the hammer, safety's on. It's just like you when you have a gun. When you load it, it's ready to go. You take the safety off and it's going to fire. Same thing. So the hammers are cocked. So just the fact of cocking those hammers is just so, it's just so cool. Click, click. You cock them and you get ready to shoot it. And you don't see them when you shoot. You're looking at what you're shooting at. You're not looking at the barrel or the hammer. You don't even see them. But all the hammers on the guns. This is one of the options I had as the person who ordered the guns. I had what's called the Purdy Dragons hand engraved on every hammer. When the hammers fall, the dragon breathes fire. They're absolutely gorgeous. Just to look at them, they're gorgeous. And so the guns are special, and there'll never be another set.
Mm-hmm.
And Rock Island went to London and interviewed Nick Harlow, who is the curator and the manager of all things Purdy, all the history, all that. And he flat out says, this will never be done again. This is one in a lifetime. And, somebody said, Will, why are you giving the guns away? I said, look at the statistics. I'll be 73 here coming up. People get sick, they get older, die. I'm going to die at some point. And why let an estate be in charge of getting rid of the guns to benefit my will? Why do that when I can be in control of it and create a ripple effect that'll make a difference? If we just reach one, I'll be happy, but I want to reach millions. I want the hunting public to know who the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation is and what they track and what they watch. I mean, it's so important. If we can't scientifically manage the game, if you don't read Otto Lupo and read the San Kenny Almanac and understand what conservation is and what he recognized, he ought to be on Mount Rushmore.
I agree. He's up there.
He
For sure.
He is up there, and he is
Him, Roosevelt.
Yes, they are my heroes. They paved the way for me as a little boy with that starry little look in my eyes, seeing my first shooting star, walking out in the dark, sitting under a tree till the squirrels came out. All these things that I did, it's just some people get it at an early age, and some people get it later in life. For me, it was meant to be. And I can't say enough about trying to spread this word. And we need money. Money talks and everything else walks.
Yeah.
We need money to be able to get the message out, to get the right people employed who can, like you, who are tracking and keeping up with and spreading the word and fighting for us to keep the habitat, restore the habitat, and protect hunting and fishing. Hunters and fishermen are the first one to reel in the rod, to reel in all the line, or to take the bullets out of the gun if the resource isn't there.
That's exactly right.
We know, we recognize it, we see it.
This particular crowd, especially, when we're talking about, and we've covered this on the program in the past, turkey populations in certain parts of the country are on a decline. And it wasn't just that golden era of the 2000s, that peak, we had this great resurgence of turkey and getting back to that carrying capacity. Like, there are declines in certain of your area of the country, one of them. And I always remark that turkey hunters would be the first ones to say, hey, I'm good. Don't get rid of the hunt. Let's just pause it and let's see what happens. Because we understand and respect and love that resource.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to lose it. We've been there. And you go back to the 1900s and Roosevelt recognizing what was going on and what wasn't working to get to 1937.
Before I knew anything about a turkey other than a Thanksgiving turkey, I was 8 years old. My Uncle Gus had great bird dogs. his most famous setter was Cheyenne. The most famous pointer was Lady. And I got a photograph of my Uncle Gus with his, I call it a humpback 12 gauge Browning, you know. I mean, and those two dogs, they were he paid a guy to commission him the beautiful painting. And I was paid $1/4 a day to clean those dog pens. And we could leave our house and drive to Madison County, where I live now. No posted signs, quail everywhere.
Mm.
We'd find, I had a hard time keeping up, and thank goodness that Buck Dearman and Uncle Gus would let me run and catch up and be with them and watch. I couldn't take a gun at that age, but I could clean the dog pens and I could be there. Well, those quail are gone. Back in the 30s, somebody made the decision we stop people from burning.
Mhm.
The fire would get away or what? I don't know what the reasoning was, but you can see the decline of the quail back in the 30s when all those. So now that we've got science and we've got good information, we can make better decisions on protecting the habitat that all these critters need to call home.
And getting back to your point about wanting people to know who we, Congressional Sportsmen Foundation, are and what we do, I think, and when I have conversations with legislators, I think it's an easy buck to pass, and I don't say that as a negative. You have current science. We have professionals at the state agencies that all you gotta do is listen to them. You hire them, they go through a vetting process, they go through higher education, they go, we read the resume, we read the certifications they have. Like, yeah, you're the man or the woman for the job we're gonna hire, you're gonna bring in part of the talent. So why aren't we listening to them? It's a real easy
I
buck.
mean, they have the studies.
That's right.
And they do the trappings and they do the bandings and they keep up with it. I mean, and they find out the relationship between the mice and the quail and predators and hawks and longleaf pines and all the things. I mean, it's just listen to them.
Yeah,
Just get emotions. Let's not be a barbershop biologist.
that's right.
Because you have an emotion and a desire. Right now there's a big issue in Mississippi about supplemental feeding turkeys. They
Mm.
got two different laws that are in the books, and there is ambiguity there
Mhm.
because one game warden can say, well, you've got a feeder on your property, so you're hunting baited turkeys.
Mm.
Another game warden can say, as long as you're not in sight or within so many yards, I ain't gonna give you a ticket. You're good.
Mhm.
So, but it's up to interpretation.
Sure.
Well, if the science says that we shouldn't feed them, period, then that's what we should do. But let the science speak to what we should do. Those biologists, Adam Butler is our turkey
No, he's
chief
good.
biologist down in Mississippi, and he's awesome.
He's awesome.
Listen to the guy.
Yeah.
That's all he does. If you want to know a little bit about shooting sporting clays, I can give you some answers. I do it a lot.
Mhm.
But you want to know about turkeys, I hunt them, but I'm not Adam Butler.
That's right. That's right. And so to that end, when we connect those professionals with the people that are gonna advance legislation and we're having those conversations and we're kind of the liaise between them, say, "Oh, look, you can talk about the social, uh, credit thing that's going on here. You have constituency that doesn't like what the hunting community or the trappers, let's talk about trappers for a second, bring them into the fold because they're just the easiest pickings and they're most maligned in our community, right? So it's real easy to get after the trappers and what they, perceivably do. And if all a legislator has to do is go to the fur bearer biologist at your state agency, like this is prescribed. Matter of fact, the best management practices that are on the ground today in 2025 are the most scrutinized best management practices that are out there. And they go through all this vetting and testing. Veterinarian Association goes through it. So the people that are servicing and setting the standards for your home cat and dog are also worried about wildlife and the stuff is there.
It gets under my skin when you talk about the trappers are easy to pick on because people try to give human attributes to critters and
Mm,
the animals and they they're working from emotions.
that's right.
I'm on an airplane one time and getting a conversation with this lady. She finds out I'm a hunter and I got a hunting products company and she's an anti-hunter. And I said, well, she wanted to keep talking. So usually I just, let it be. So she wanted to keep talking. So I said, ma'am, we are all consumers on this earth. Every human being cannot exist without consuming what the earth has to offer for us to sustain our lives. I said, where do you live? I live in an apartment. What state? California. I said, well, you may think you just perfect. You have a little apartment. And I said, but let me tell you something. Somebody built that apartment complex. Somebody took away the habitat for critters, for birds, for lizards and snakes and frogs, or whatever was there, so that you could sustain your life the way you wanted to. So, ma'am, I'm just going to tell you, we're all consumers. We just need to be wise consumers.
Mm. Did you have a thought to that, or did you just kind of look out the window?
Kind of ended the conversation.
Well, because it's reasonable, right? I mean, you're from the emotion, and you're operating at a very shallow spot that has nothing deeper. And I'm with you. I get flustered too about the trappers. I'm a passionate trapper myself, so it's a near and dear spot to my heart. The service they provide. I'm gonna go on the soapbox real quick. The audience has heard this, but for you and me, now I always make the point about the trappers. Uh, we'll go to our state agency and buy a $35 permit on my money. I'm volunteering to go out there essentially to do it for free. I'm paying the state to do it. I buy my own equipment. I pay my own gas money and perform an amazing service that the agency couldn't afford to pay people to do. And I'm out there on my own time, my own dime. Now, conversely, you go to a state like Massachusetts, where they've all but outlawed it, and they have to pay contractors millions of dollars a year to the taxpayer in the state of
Makes you
Massachusetts.
no sense.
It's crazy for something that folks are already doing, for, paying to do. And the biological data that comes in to the fur bearer biologist, to the biologist, the state agency that they get from sampling, from jaw samples of fisher to talk about distemper and what's going on with fisher populations, what's happening with beaver and things that are affecting them. They could not afford to put professionals on the ground to cover that much space as trappers, as turkey hunters, because we see stuff on the ground, deer hunters see stuff on the ground. We're the most in tune group, and we provide this information and filling out the surveys. Now, I'll be remiss, and we'll kind of bring this home. Recreational shooters, when we're talking about that American system of conservation funding and that 10 to 11% manufacturers level excise tax, you're going out there shooting sporting clays. If you're just a sporting clays fella and you've never shot a turkey or a winged critter, you're still contributing to that system as a rec shooter. And I think they're doing 65 to 70% of that funding, which is huge. So while the conservation community, we get pretty dialed in on our conservation policy, we're also making sure that we're taking care of those Second Amendment issues as well and those shooting rights, because once those are encroached on with additional excise taxes, with stripping 21-year-olds and under the ability to hold a semi-automatic gun because they think it's a scary gun, but they don't understand that involves a turkey and a duck gun, what does that do to conservation funding? And speaking the language, speaking the truth to conservation, I think I brought it home.
Yeah, you make me think of some very fond memories as far as my trapping, because I absolutely it, I my words for it is I love it so much. It's like what's under the Christmas tree
Every day.
every day,
Every day.
at every set.
Yes.
And I would go in the dark when I had an early class. After I went to Ole Miss and Mississippi State, ran out of money, had to go home work for the family, have a job, and stay at home to finish my education. So I finished at a private school, Belhaven College in Jackson, Mississippi. And before class, when I had early class, I would check my traps in the dark. And when you got a skunk, and you got to call your teacher, and you got to say, I don't think I should come to class today. What's up? Well, I caught a skunk this morning. I didn't handle it right.
Have you figured out a way? Because I haven't. There's no good way. Well, I do know of an old school trick from old trappers with the syringe. I know that's probably the best. But I got set up by guys your age and older that says, listen, all you got to do is put a blanket over him.
That doesn't always work.
That does never work for me. And then they said, well, just dispatch him head on. That'll nope, that doesn't work either every time. And I tell old timers and they just laugh. They laugh so hard.
I do have a system that I'll tell you about after the podcast.
Very good. That seems fair. In the remaining minutes, wow, what a quick hour. So I think we've hit on all the highlights of what we're doing, the motivations, who you are. We got a hell of a flavor for that. And I appreciate that going back in time with us. What I guess is your I'm gonna give you the last 5 or so minutes to talk to policymakers, legislators, and just drive home what you need them or would like them to understand about who we are, not just CSF, but our community in totality.
Well, all of us, as we said, are consumers of this earth, and we've got to do it wisely. So, having good science based facts on the decisions we make when we fool with streams, when we fool with rivers, when we do something with the land, whether we disc it or it's no till, or whether we use variable rate fertilizer on fields, all these things add into what we're doing for habitat. And it's so important to have the science behind it and to have the biologists telling us what to do is going to benefit wildlife. And once again, if they don't have the type of home that they need, the wildlife, and the different wildlife need different types of home. You can't have quail on places where they can't run around on the ground. The predators catch them, hawks catch them. You've got to have the habitat. So the work that we do, the message that we get, the sportsmen that support what we do benefits everybody, not just hunters, fishers, and trappers. It benefits all of mankind. And this is the truth about conservation that we've got to get across to policymakers, that they've got to pay attention and they've got to listen to the experts.
I think that's a great way to leave it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Primos, thank you for your generosity, your leadership. And I know you don't like it, but I'm going to leave it here. We talked about Roosevelt, mentioned Aldo Leopold, and those men didn't do what they did for conservation for personal gain. They saw the value and looking into the future. You don't like it, but I'm going to do it again. You're on that level, and this opportunity here will live in the ripple effect that you're invoking. It's going to ripple beyond people knowing who CSF is and the 4 other NGOs. Um, it will it will leave a legacy, and we're just glad to be a part of that
I'm,
going
I'm,
forward.
I'm proud. I'm proud of y'all. Y'all keep it up.
Thank you, sir.
My thanks to Will Primos. Gosh, man, a fast hour there, and you get to talking about these things and just 2 guys just chatting. And it goes by so fast and stuff you're excited about, stuff you're passionate about. He gave us more time than I think we were scheduled for, but, no big deal there, and certainly it wasn't a big deal to him. It was, him being able to tell this story and get this message out and get this motivation out, what these firearms mean to him, for him to be moved so by talking about them and what they're gonna do, and you don't you don't get a lot of authenticity like that all the time, and, I'm grateful for the candidness, for him being willing to be that honest and open about this and what it means to him. When you spend decades of your life, I imagine, let me put that in the front of this. I imagine when you spend decades of your life, making a living off of a space like this that requires so much more. And when I mean by that is I can go out and press turkey calls. I can make pot calls. I can make box calls, whatever. I can be one of whatever 10,000 turkey call companies out there. It's enough to be in that top 10 sphere of household name, something that has staying power. And, people just assume you're the call most people are running, right? You make a living off of that and you expand it, you build on that, and you get better, bigger, better, bigger. But that success is predicated on people going out. It's very special. In this case, going into the woods, recreating, being a part of something bigger, whether they know it or not, being a part of that North American model of wildlife management, science-based wildlife management, being one of the 7 principles in that as prescribed by the professionals, as prescribed by that model of where hunters belong in that and telling that story. To make your living, to make a whole just life of wealth, life of richness, and not richness in the tangible, what's in your wallet richness. The opportunities, the connections, everything that that man has built and done so genuinely, and honestly requires people taking. And Will recognizes that and understands that and the importance and the place that we we are and where we need to be, and the role we play to perpetuate that, to continue having these wild places, having these natural habitats to conserve the next generation and recruit the next generation of game species, to ensure there's non-game species out there that are all part of this wonderful web. They all contribute to each other in one way or another. Will recognizes that. Taking those taglines, if you listen to the roundup this week, you heard me talk about this and kind of focus in on this evolution of what we're branding taglines in the truth, in the speak the language. Hearing him talk about cuz just being I guess, exasperated carrying an 85-pound pack and those old shoulder mounted, cameras, right? I can remember my grandfather walking around his house with one of these big VHS cameras recording everything. And now we got these stupid things on our phones. It's remarkable. I digress. To have cause you guys have heard and known over the past on this program, if he's so exasperated by carrying all this stuff around and to have his integrity challenged about a canned hunt or recreating a hunt for the film portion of it, and for him to be like, nah, dog, that's the truth. That's him. That's so him, and that's so authentic. And that truth back then that sustained them through decades of the truth to evolve into what Will wants the truth to be, and that is this messaging, that is the work that we do at CSF, and then down to the partners, the partner organizations, turkeys, ducks, pheasant, quail, and elk, right? That's the truth that he wants, and when he drops that pebble in that alpine, glassy, smooth lake, and it creates a ripple, and that ripple turns into a wave, that's the truth he's putting out there. And when Will was speaking the language over the decades, he was literally speaking the language of a turkey, of an elk, of coyotes, predators, ducks, whatever the call was, he was making her speak of the language. But now, the truth about conservation, the only way to tell that truth is to speak that language. And you have this next evolution of another tagline in that the language you're speaking is telling the story of conservation and how the whole thing works. And it's stuff you guys who have been along for the ride here since September of 23 turned us into a top 10 product, your listenership, listening and subscribing. You guys understand how to speak that language because this we talk about it at least once a week, once a show. Normally on these features, it finds its way into it naturally. It's not forced because that's the story we're telling. We are speaking that language. We do speak that language day in and day out when we're up at the state capitals, when Chris Horton, Taylor Schmitz, and John Colclasure are executing on behalf of their federal policy portfolios, and they're down on the Hill, and John's working forestry. Taylor's working with the CSC co-chairs and trying to work a Fist to Fix Our Forest Act, or Chris is working Rigs to Reef. They're speaking that language, how that whole thing works. When any one of the state program team members, myself included, are up and we're talking with our state legislative caucus co-chairs and members, and we're trying to stop a particular piece of bill because it's terrible for the sporting community. It's antithetical to how the conservation funding model works or science-based wildlife management works, or we're advancing proactive legislation to enhance all those things. We're speaking the language and telling the truth about conservation in those conversations. This audience understands that and knows that. The challenge to you guys now is to take that, pick that up, run with it yourself, and then the people in your spheres, your little ecosystems where you live, is to have them do the same thing and tell them this story. Tell them the truth and speak that language too about how these two very important models work. Why hunters, why recreational shooters, why anglers, why trappers are so critical, even though our numbers are small comparatively to 335 million plus people in this country alone. but because of our community, whatever that representation is, those 325 million get to enjoy the literal fruits of our labor and our treasure that we spend to go out there and do this stuff. That's a pretty big deal. And again, I don't think I'm overstating it. I know Will doesn't think we're overstating it. Hell, that's why he's doing this. I got a chance after this interview to go over the Rock Island booth there on the floor in NWTF during the convention. You heard Will talk about that. I held one of the guns. I held the 12 gauge. Listen, not everyone's going to get to hold these guns. All right. You may, if you're in the area where they're being showcased, they're going to travel the country. If you get an opportunity to see them, go check them out because craftsmanship it is just world class. Again, you heard Will talk about how these things are made. Again, which makes them so special. They're perfect, like literally perfect. Just so happened Will and I are roughly the same size. So when I shouldered, he asked me to shoulder. He said, "Shoulder that gun." I wasn't prepared to do anything. I really didn't want to touch him. I afraid I'm gonna ding him up or something. But anyway, I shouldered it. Man, I'm not your quote gun guy, gun enthusiast. I like them. I like shooting. I like using them, especially to shoot beautiful turkeys. But like I don't look at a gun and just be like, man, I gotta have that. For me, they're a tool. And then I respect and appreciate people that have an appreciation and affinity for good stuff. Until that moment, I hadn't really touched art, in my opinion. The thing fit like a glove. It was perfect. It just shouldered so well. It felt good. The wood stock felt good. Everything felt good. He had me work the brake action because as he told the story, that little piece of sand got in there. He couldn't close it. They're machined so precisely and so perfectly that the smallest grain of sand would interrupt the functionality of that firearm. And I felt that, and I heard that ping, and I was just it's not a put on, it's not an exaggeration, it was it is so. And then you get to look at the detail and the engravings on it, the dragon that he talked about that's on that hammer. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And again, these guns by themselves are a complete treasure, but they are a big vehicle and the carrot, right, that we're dangling out there, that Will's dangling out there. The bigger picture, the bigger messaging of speaking the language and speaking the truth about conservation. So that's this whole thing. I hope you enjoyed it. You don't seldom get to talk to people that, from a historical standpoint, when you look back, left a real mark and a real impact in our conservation, our hunting community space, right? Will's a humble guy, definitely, doesn't want to hear about being on the Mount Rushmore, especially being up there with the likes of a Roosevelt or an Aldo Leopold and stuff like that. But I don't think it's a stretch, and I think it's an honest accounting. And when I say he belongs up there, I truly mean that. He's been up there, and I can, people in his immediate circle that really laid the groundwork for so much of this space. People that make their livelihoods off of this space and in this space. He was there, and some of his partners at the time probably get up there too. Uh, I mean it when I say it. And to have this recorded history, for me, is a huge gift. It's up there, man, some of the more professional recordings I've done. And I've interviewed Will in the past. We talked about that a little bit offline, and those tend to be more of the "Hi, how are you?" catch up interviews, nothing, I don't wanna demean it, but, like, nothing of great substance, not really substantive like this was. And when you get an opportunity to do this, and again, it's far and few between, I acknowledge it, that's why it's so special, that this story will live on. It will live on beyond this December, and you can look back at it in years as long as the lights are on, the internet's still a thing, AI hasn't dominated us and telling us what to listen. I'm kidding, I'm going down this. As long as this stuff is available for consumption, or I have a way to play it off this SD card that I have recorded it on. That's a living history. I put it up there with the time I got to talk with Colonel Tom Kelly. If you don't know who that is, I invite you to go look up Tom Kelly and look up the 10th Legion. You'll understand what I mean. It's special. And this story, I think, will be timeless for quite some time. It'll be relevant, especially as we continue to have these conversations about ensuring there's next generations of people coming in to this conservation and sporting community, picking up where those of us that leave this planet leave off, and continuing the good practices and the good management. So there. So that's my very, very long out. I try to make these as brief, but this one just really, again, really special, really important, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's good. You guys can go check the guns out. Um, Rock Island Auction Company. You can go to their website, rockislandauctions.com. They're going to host it. You can go to the truthaboutconservation.com. Or as always, go to congressionalsportsman.org. See all the latest and greatest. We're going to link everything from there. Links will be in the show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the TSVE pub, the track in the capitals. It's all free. Go back, listen to the roundup if you haven't. Some more good information there on free resources, updated resources. It's a busy time of year, and we're still rolling. We got a lot of good stuff going. More reporting to bring to you next Wednesday. Um, Listen to this a couple times and then share it. Share this one especially. The ramifications, the potential ramifications of this could be huge. And it's not just directly affecting CSF. All these great organizations are partner organizations as well that Will has identified, of which you may be a member of one, two, or three, or all of them. And having that money go there and help those missions is key. So share this episode out, get some people fired up, motivated. Check out these guns. It's gonna be something special for somebody, or maybe some somebodies. Maybe some somebodies get together and buy these as a group. But we'll find out in December. All right. No feature next week, obviously, because we're here. Um, as always, every Wednesday we got the roundup to you. Uh, in 2 Thursdays from now, we will bring you our new leadership from this Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus. I'll bring you some of the sight sounds from our new leadership, and we sit down with our new co-chairs and vice chairs on the House and Senate side while we were in DC. So until then, we thank you for your support and then the work you guys are doing on our behalf of the downloads, the listens, the follows, the star fill-ins. Top five, 3 weeks running here, folks. That's a huge accomplishment playing in a big space with a lot of established media people and obviously the news of the day, conservation news, the messaging we're talking about is resonating. It's important to you because you're listening, new people are listening, and I always sign off saying, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. It's more than a tagline, it's a truth. And it's the truth we'll want you to know about. And we are quickly planting our flag in our media space as the go-to, and that's evident by our top 10 positioning, top 5 positioning uh, for 3 weeks running, and we thank you for that. So, until next week, everybody be good and be safe out there. As always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. We'll see you all next week. Thanks so much for bringing us along. See ya. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.